If you own a second home or rental property in the Phoenix area, you probably got one of these puppies. Postcard, text message, maybe even a phone call or 10. And they all say something like, we'll pay cash for your home, no repairs, no fees, no agent. We can close in 7 days flat. And then they throw out a price. Today I'm going to show you exactly where that number comes from. It's not random, it's usually not very generous, but it does come from a formula. And once you understand that formula, you'll never look at one of these offers the same way again. As you've figured out, these are investors, but not necessarily the kind you think they are. Most of these offers come from someone known as a wholesale investor. A wholesale investor or wholesaler doesn't want to live in your house. They don't want to rent it out. They actually don't want to renovate it themselves. In fact, believe it or not, they don't want to own your home at all. Their job is simple: get your home under contract for sale for the lowest possible price. Then assign that contract to a real buyer and mark it up a little bit. Keep the difference as their fee. They're simply the middleman. And the math they use even has a name. It's called the 70% rule. Here's how it works. A wholesaler starts by estimating what your home would be worth were it completely renovated. That's called the after repair value, or ARV, as they say in the business. They then take approximately 70% of that number and subtract out their profit they want to make on the transaction. The result becomes the offer they present to you. Let's use real Phoenix numbers. Suppose your property would be worth $450,000 after repairs. That's pretty close to the current Phoenix Metro median price tag. 70% of $450,000 is $315,000. Now take away $15,000 for the wholesaler's desired profit, and suddenly the offer becomes $300,000. Now, $300,000. That is approximately 35% off the top. And here's the part they definitely don't want you to know. That $300,000 is not what the wholesaler plans to pay. It's simply enough to get your property under contract. Then, don't be surprised if somewhere before closing, they come back asking for another price reduction. Maybe they'll tell you the market slowed down, construction cost increased. Maybe they found something during the inspection period that supposedly changes the entire calculus. You'll hear all sorts of bullshit. Once they negotiate another reduction, they assign the contract to the real buyer, collect a sizable assignment fee, and then walk away scot-free. That fee comes directly out of your pocket because it represents the gap between what you accepted and what a real investor was actually willing to pay. You're not just paying for speed and convenience, you're paying a middleman's markup. Now, not every cash investor works this way. There are actually two very different kinds of investors. There's the wholesale investor and a retail investor. Knowing which one you're talking to changes everything. You already know how a wholesale investor operates. They never intend to own your property. They simply tie it up under contract and sell the paperwork to somebody else before closing. A retail investor is different. Retail investor is the actual buyer. They use their own money. They intend to close on the property themselves, and they definitely will renovate it and sell it. Either way, they're the ones signing the closing documents, not assigning the contract to somebody else. Because a retail investor is the actual buyer, there is no extra assignment fee layered into the transaction. What they offer is much closer to what the property is actually worth. Now, that doesn't mean a retail investor pays full price. They still buy at a discount, typically somewhere between 65 and 75% of the after repair value, depending on renovation costs, holding costs, financing, and current market conditions. Under good conditions, they typically pay more. Under rough conditions, they pay less. But whatever number they offer, it's pretty close to their real number. Now, here's an easy way to tell the difference between a wholesaler and a retailer. Ask the buyer to show you the last 3 homes they have personally renovated. Then ask for tax records showing when they purchased each property and when they later sold it. If they can produce that documentation, you're probably dealing with a legitimate company that is willing to fix and flip that property. A wholesaler won't have those projects to show you because the projects don't exist. Now you know. I also want to be very clear about something else. I'm not saying cash offers are a scam, and I'm certainly not saying that you should never accept one. Sometimes speed matters more than squeezing every last dollar out of the house. Maybe you've inherited a property. Maybe you're dealing with difficult tenants, or maybe you simply just want a fast, hassle-free sale. Cash and speed definitely have their place. I'm simply saying this marketplace, it is a bit of a minefield, and everyone wants your money. The real problem is accepting 1, 2, or 3 unsolicited offers without having any meaningful competition. When only a handful of buyers know your property is available, why would they offer their highest price? They don't have to. They're protecting their profits, not yours. You simply have no way of knowing whether the offers are truly competitive because your sample size is so small. So what's the solution? It's not avoiding cash offers, it's creating competition. Instead of allowing 1 or 2, 3 investors to quietly tell you what your home is worth, expose your property to hundreds of real retail investors all at once and let them compete against each other. That's exactly why I created my signature service called 30 Cash Offers. Instead of receiving offers from just a handful of investors, your property is exposed and presented to hundreds of legitimate retail investors. These are buyers who actually intend to buy the property, renovate, and sell it. Within about 1 week, you'll typically receive 30 or more offers. Because those buyers know they're competing against one another, they bring their best number. They bring their A game. That's how markets are supposed to work. Competition drives price. You still get speed, you still get convenience, you still don't have to make repairs, but instead of wondering whether you left tens of thousands of dollars on the table, you're going to know that you received the highest price possible because you have 30 serious cash buyers telling you what the highest price they're willing to pay actually is. You can find out what your property is really worth by allowing 30 real buyers to compete for it instead of relying on one buyer or 2, 3 who's hoping you won't ask questions. If you'd like to learn more about how 30 Cash Offers works, or simply find out what your property is really worth in today's market, visit our website or give me a call directly. Again, I'm Matt Borkowski, and I'll look forward to speaking with you soon.